Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Josh. I'm going to be your presenter today. It's promptly 11:30 Eastern Time. First of all, I just want to make crystal clear. This event is really designed for Church Windows customers that own and use the payroll module, okay? If you record payroll transactions through accounting without using Church Windows Payroll and you don't own the payroll module, you may find some of this information helpful or useful, or maybe you might look at it with the interest of considering Church Windows Payroll or using or buying that. But I just want to make sure that this is designed based on Church Windows Payroll. Again, if there's anybody here that has just accounting, and you don't own payroll, again, this event may not be terribly useful or helpful for you. Okay, so first of all, just as I was thinking about this event, we have out on the website one called Paying from a Liability Account. And that, folks, simply wasn't enough. Essentially, yes, payroll taxes are paid from liability accounts that are set up in our chart of accounts. Okay. But it wasn't enough. I told Rachel, I said, we need to have a webinar that's designed specifically on posting and dealing and generating and paying payroll taxes as they occur from Church Windows Payroll, okay? Sure, there are other scenarios under which paying from liabilities is important, certainly, and there's other things, parts of that are useful and helpful, but it was necessary because we get so many calls and emails from users going, how do I pay my payroll taxes? And there's information out there, but now we want to make sure that definitively there's something out there that folks can access that actually addresses and uses the keyword payroll and taxes in its title. It's out there on the Resource Center page. So essentially, if employee information is entered and set up correctly in the payroll module, the Church Windows payroll postings withhold all federal, state, and local taxes, if applicable, and sends them and posts them to the appropriate accounts in our chart of accounts in accounting. And notably, the taxes go into the liability accounts and just sit there until those taxes are paid. And so we're going to show an example of that here under our balance sheet in, say, 2025. I'm going to use, say, for month February. Doesn't really matter, but when I'm here to show, it does matter. But the point is, I'm just doing that, and I'm going to print here. And I want to point out right here, let me get out my drawing tool here. Right here, we've got our payroll liabilities, okay? So it says total payroll. We got a subtotal of that. We've got our 941 taxes payable for our federal taxes. We've got our state taxes payable. We've got a city and county liability account here, and we've even got pension or payroll deduction liabilities with balances sitting here waiting to be paid from Church Windows Payroll, okay? For employees with federal income tax, Social Security, Medicare, and tax withholding, it all posts to one single liability account. That account oftentimes might be called federal taxes or 941 taxes payable like we have, whatever you decide to call it. But you only want to have one account for each one of the taxing authorities that you're paying, okay? So I'm posting one payment to EFTPS with whatever deposit schedule I have, and I have only paying one state payment. And okay, if I have multiple state or local taxing authorities, I might have to set up multiples of those. But otherwise, federal and state, you need one and only one account. I work with churches who I look at their balance sheets and I see they've got one that says federal taxes payable on it, and then another one that says Social Security Medicare tax or Social Security taxes payable, and then Medicare taxes payable, etc. And you don't need that. You cannot link employees to multiple liability accounts in payroll. And we're going to look at that in a minute here, okay? So again, if I did have multiple local taxing authorities, I might have multiple liabilities set up for each one of those local taxing authorities. But that would be the only exception from the single that deviates from the federal and state tax accounts, okay? All right, maybe if you have if you're a state that you have to pay taxes to two different states, okay, you might have two, but it's very rare in many cases, okay? Because we cannot post one payment from multiple liability accounts, this is why we only need one of these accounts, okay? I can't go into pay bills and say, okay, I want to take payments from, one, two, or three, or four different liability accounts and bundle it into one payment. That's not how the software works. So we have to make sure that the tax balances are sitting in the appropriate accounts. And when we look at the payroll reports here in just a minute or two, I think this will make a lot more sense for folks in terms of how this process works. Okay, it's all how employees are linked into the payroll in payroll to the accounting to their respective accounts, and we're going to look at that momentarily. Do not set up separate liabilities for federal Social Security and Medicare. Okay, just don't do it. It's going to create problems if you do, and especially because payroll and how it's set up is as it is. Okay, all right. So we do have balances in our tax accounts here, all right? Our beginning balance shows the balance that we brought forward from December for our 941 in state and local taxes, and then it shows our current year-to-date balance through February for 2024, or 2025, excuse me. We have some advanced data in here, and that's why that shows up, but you'll see again how it'll work. Let's now jump into payroll real quick. So when we go into payroll, I go to employees, contractors, okay? All right, Larry's our senior minister. He's a pastor. If we go to the tax tab, he has the 941 taxes payable account down here, but he's not. Oh, and he is opting to use tax tables, so he is opting to have federal tax withheld. His is going into that account, that 210-100 account, 941 taxes payable. All of my employees are. Okay, there are no deviations from that regarding my employees with regards to that 941 account. Same is true for my state tax account. All right, any employees paying state taxes are all linked to 210-110 state taxes payable. Again, the only exception to this might be here under this local taxes where I've got maybe like here, Steve, I've got Columbus taxes and Pickerington School District. This one I might want to have two accounts set up to receive those for those two separate taxing authorities. Okay. But again, in any case, the federal and state, which is really what we're here to talk about, is what we're here to show, is where that is only one account for each one of those. Okay. I also want to take a minute here under payroll and go to reports, pay reports, and I want to go to the accounting transfer audit report because I want you to see how payroll posts into accounting for the employees typically. All right. So again, Church Windows Payroll takes care of 90% of the work, 95% of the work for you. Okay. And it's displayed right here. Okay. So over here are our accounts debited, which are typically going to be expense accounts. And over here in the center column under account credited, right here is where these different taxes come into play. Okay. So right here we've got Senior Pastor Larry. He's got one line for 941 taxes. Why? Because, well, let me get my highlighter again right here. 941 taxes payable because he is choosing to have federal income tax withheld. Okay. So he only has one line going into 941 taxes payable. But if we look down here under Jimmy, I've got 941 taxes payable once. I've got it twice. And then I've got it another third time down here. Oh, I thought I had it down there, but there would be, there it is, federal taxes right there. There's number 3. Okay. Why, you ask, are there 3 accounts? Why is that same account showing 3 times? Very simple. One is over here, and if we steer our focus to the right to the description, it shows employers FICA, employees FICA, and federal tax withholding. So all 3 of those pour into that same tax liability account in accounting in order to post our one single payment. Okay. Church Windows Payroll handles all of that for you. Okay. This is why, folks, there's no need to enter a bill when posting your payroll taxes. Payroll takes care of it all. The only thing you have to do is go online to your taxing authority after determining the tax amount based on what payroll shows us, then go into accounting and record the payment. That's simple, and we're going to show you how to do that. All right? But I just want to show, because I get this call a lot. Why am I seeing the 941 tax, federal tax liability account showing up 3 times for an employee? Federal tax, employees FICA, and employers FICA match. All of those are going into that one account for your lump sum 941 payment amount. Okay, and that's true for every single one of my employees in this list. Okay, so I just like to show that that's the report you want to look at to see how employees are linked into their accounts. All right. So when it comes time to pay our taxes, all right, we're going to use the payroll reports to generate that, folks. Okay. Don't go into accounting and go to the account and look at it and go, oh, I'm going to go to the balance tab and I'm going to see what the current balance is and I'm going to pay that. Don't do that. Okay. You could have previous month's taxes in here and some of the current month's taxes that are commingled, so you could be overpaying or underpaying depending on what the balance of that account is. So we're going to go back to payroll. So we're going to say, all right, we're going to generate our federal and state tax payments here, okay? We're going to go right up to reports and export in the top left, pay reports, pay period deductions report, okay? So the IRS is very clear about deposit schedules. If your total tax deposit for the quarter is more than $2,500, you're a monthly depositor. Okay? If it's less than $2,500, you're a quarterly depositor. We get this call quite a bit. Folks go, well, I mean, the IRS told me that I'm a monthly depositor, but my deposits are less than $2,500. Folks, go ahead. Post the deposits into EFTPS on a monthly basis. The government's never going to turn down your money. Trust me. Okay? But you are not legally obligated to make the deposit until the end of the quarter if it's less than $2,500 by even 1 cent. Okay? It even says that on the 941. Okay? So we're going to look at ours. And so ours are more than $2,500 per quarter. I know that. So I'm going to run my pay period deductions report for the month of January 2025. So I put in my date range up here in the upper left, leave all of my employees, all of my pay types. I want to leave everything here. I want to make sure I'm including all my taxes for the period. And I simply go to print. Okay? So then when the report comes up, if you notice down the left-hand side here, 941 deposit right here, okay, right there. That is my total deposit for January 2025. If I go over to my state tax column over here and I go down to the bottom, my state taxes are $292. Even so far as to the right, my total local taxes are $321.83. Okay, so this particular report tells us exactly what our tax liability is for each one of those respective taxing authorities. So now that I know what my 941 total is for $2277.38, I'm going to jump online and I'm going to go to EFTPS and I'm going to record that payment with them. I'm going to pay them. Okay. Then I'm going to jump into accounting again. So let me go down here. Let's go back to accounting. And if I go to my manage accounts and right to my 941 chart of accounts and into my 941 taxes payable and I go to the balance tab, we see January's payment right here, balance of $2277.38 matches what that payroll report says I owe to the penny. Okay? This is how simple this should be. Like I said, folks, I've got 5 or 6 months worth of data, advanced here data in our training data here. That's why this balance continues to accrue, okay? But all I have to do now is go to, let me get rid of my drawing tools here, go to Pay Bills, go right up here to Quick Pay, choose View Vendors with a Balance. Oh, and I should have shown you folks, sorry, I meant to do this. If I go to my state taxes payable and go to balance, January balance is $292 exactly. Again, my beginning balance was the end of the prior year. I posted that payment in January for the prior year. That's why those balances are different. Okay? So again, back up, go to Pay Bills, Quick Pay, View Vendors with a Balance. Here's my 941 taxes payable. Yup, I definitely have enough in that account to cover that. I'm going to put a check mark in the select box. And then I'm down here under my state taxes payable. Yup, I've got enough to pay that. Now again, folks, if my state was saying I mandated or required that I pay my state taxes quarterly, I would just run the pay period deductions report for the first quarter and then look at the bottom total at the bottom of the state tax column to see what that is. Okay, really depends. Every state is different. Okay, so yep, I've got enough money in my state tax payable, so I'm going to put a check mark in both of those accounts, click Create Payments, and then now I'm kind of back to posting my payments like I would normally, moving left to right. So I check my date occurred. Okay, so if here it is in February, I'm going to say, okay, I paid that a week ago last Monday on EFTPS, so I'm going to backdate that to February 10th. I'm going to make sure my vendor is right. I'm going to go make sure my asset account is correct from which those payments were deducted. And then right here, now this is where folks get a little confused, is these are not bills, folks. These are just balances. The software does not presume or assume that the balance of the account is what you're wanting to pay. Okay? So you have to key in the amount to pay. So now I'm going to put in the $2277.38 for my federal taxes. I'll put in my $292 for my state taxes. I will then come over here and choose the appropriate payment method. In this case, we'll just say I paid both my Ohio State taxes and my federal EFTPS taxes online. I'm just choosing my payment method accordingly, entering any optional transaction comments, January 2025, 941 taxes, down here then state taxes for January 2025, and post. And then it asks if I want to print my report. Okay. Now when I go back to my chart of accounts and I go down to my 941 taxes payable and go to balance, now notice that February balance is reduced by the amount of the $2277.38 that I've paid. Similarly, state is now down to $236 for February because I've paid January's payment. Okay? If I didn't have this advanced training data in here, folks, with these advanced payments that are data that I've done for months ahead, likely my January balance might be zero, unless I had a pay in February that I'd already posted before I had gone in and posted the payment. But whatever that balance is in February, it's going to be already there for whatever my balance is that I'm going to owe for the following month. Okay? One more thing here. So again, folks, the software does the work for you. You do not need to enter bills for taxes. Okay? As long as everybody's linked correctly, it's going to be correct. One other thing, when we go to reports, pay reports, if you have local taxes, I recommend going to the detail reports here, over here, local taxes. Again, everything in payroll is date driven. So we're going to put in, say, January 31st is our ending date and click print. And notice here it shows each one of my employees' local gross taxable wages, their amount of their local taxes withheld. Okay, so it's each individual. But really what I'm here to look at is when I go down to the very bottom, right here, I've got my local tax summary down here that shows each one of the local tax districts, what the wages are, local wage reported wages are, and what the amount of the taxes are. And if we notice, the 321.83 matches up exactly with what the local tax and local and county tax balance was in my accounting module. Okay? The software, if set up correctly, does most of the work for you. Okay? But please, folks, use the reports in payroll as your guide. There's an exception to maybe why payroll might be wrong. Okay, but typically if payroll is set up correctly, it's everything is in here is what's going to print on your tax forms. including your 941s and your W-2s and 1099s and 1096s, right? So the exception might be if you've got duplicate payrolls, or maybe if you've got an employee that's not set up properly. That could be why maybe things are not, don't have the correct totals or amounts that you're wanting. Maybe an adjustment was posted that posted something incorrectly. But payroll should always be your guide to tell you what the tax liability is, whether it's federal or state or local, doesn't matter. If you're using Church Windows Payroll, this is where that process starts to determine what the actual tax amounts are. Then if we go into accounting, and we can verify very simply by going into those account balances and looking at them to see if they support those totals, and they should. If it's set up properly, folks, it should be that simple. Okay? So use the power that the software gives you, because it really will make your life easier in both payroll and accounting if you follow these steps and use the payroll reports to generate those totals and post those payments. Okay? All right. That is where we are going to leave our topic for today. All right. I'm going to see what questions here. We got one. I don't know that liability accounts would come up when I asked to look at vendors with the balance. I don't usually do the pay bills function. Okay. William, that's something you would probably want to call and talk to one of our technicians about. It may, if maybe not a liability directly, but at least maybe a vendor. Typically, you could have those payroll taxes crediting expenses. That might be, again, something you choose to do, but again, it's very rare, and it certainly adds a level of complexity to it that that I think could certainly be the process. I think the process could certainly be streamlined and simplified depending on how you have it set up. But this is the way that I'm talking about it now is where the way 99% of our users set it up and how we recommend it be set up. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. Reach out to me. We'll be happy to help you with it, of course. Folks, go ahead and enter questions if you have those into the Q&A portion of the webinar. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those. Maybe I did a very good job and was very thorough about that and got those answered. I don't see any other questions coming in. Yeah, again, folks, okay, so the bottom line I want to point out to this is we try to make this process as easy and simple as possible for you, okay? Don't make it harder than it is. Payroll takes care of 95% of posting to all of the accounts you need. The only exception to that, what you need to do, addition to that you need to do, is just what we've done today, which is to generate those tax totals, go online, pay the taxing authority, then go into accounting and post the payment transactions to parallel that. And it's very simple process, and if it's done right and set up right, there's nothing you have to worry about. It's all done. Every month is closed and resolved, and you don't need to go back and do anything again. Well, it's my pleasure, of course, Pat. So another question. So the payment transfers to accounting with the other transactions. I'm not sure what you mean by the payment transfers. What I know is that here under this, William, is if I go in and run my payroll taxes and I print my general ledger, say, for January, all of my employees that are contributing federal tax, Social Security, and or Medicare are all crediting into this account to sit there until I generate the payment and post the payment to EFTPS. Same is true for state. All payroll. These accounts, folks, are ridiculously consistent in the sense that we see a bunch of payroll credits, and then periodically we'll see the payment coming out to the EFTPS, whether that's monthly, semi-weekly, quarterly, whatever your deposit schedule is. Again, you see payroll credit, then payment debit with whatever frequency your deposit schedule mandates. Okay. Again, and the same is true for my state account and my local accounts too. Not a single bill in any of these. Not one. Okay. all payroll credits, periodic payment debits. That's it. Okay. And again, if you've got salaried folks and those tax amounts or the wages are the same, they're usually within dollars of each other, maybe tens of dollars of one another based on how consistent those are, based on how many employees you have. Like in ours, it's probably right around 22 or 2,300 virtually every month. Might fluctuate with changes in hours for hourly employees, but the amounts are very similar. Carol's asking, can you go back to use this process if you did not use the payroll liability? Carol, that's an individual data question. I absolutely, you can certainly begin to doing the process now, but I would want to know where were your payroll taxes crediting if they weren't going to a liability. That's something you should call us on support. 800-533-5227. Tom is asking, is this information included in any training modules, payroll modules? I don't know if that is, Tom, included in that. I don't know. I honestly, I can't say that. It might be in the help files. It might be in the training workbooks, but again, I haven't seen those in a while, so I can't speak to that. I'm sorry. Carol said, had used the payroll bill pay process, not even using liabilities, which had a large balance. I see. Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's an individual data question. Carol, call us. Our technicians are happy to help. But sure, I mean, all you typically would have to do would be to either maybe, well, I don't know. I don't want to speak to it. Call us. That's an individual data question. That again that's got to be pushed off to a support call. It can be cleaned up for sure, but to what extent until we see what the data looks like, I don't know. William, aren't you recording the payment to the federal state from the payroll module, so it has to transfer to accounting, right? No, the payment, William, is all handled in accounting. Payments are not handled in payroll at all. Payroll just handles the employee's pay, takes care of debiting and crediting all of the respective accounts, but the payment itself is exclusively recorded in accounting only and online. David is asking, will Church Windows auto pay Fed and state taxes? No, there's nothing in our software, David, that's automated. You would have to go online to EFTPS and post those payments. It is my understanding that as we're continuing to do webinars with Atrix, that Atrix may do those for you, but you still have to tell them how much you owe. Yeah, Atrix has a feature or a function that allows you to post your federal and state taxes through them, but to what extent they do that, I don't know, and that's what we're working on for another event with them. Now, these are all great questions, folks. No, I'm glad you've asked those. But no, the payments themselves, the totals are generated in payroll for what you owe, but the payment itself is exclusively recorded here in accounting. So you're very welcome, of course. All right, folks, we've gone a little long here. I appreciate your patience while we work through that. Let me take a quick look, make sure I didn't miss any questions. Doesn't look like it. It's almost exactly 12 noon Eastern time here, folks. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend with me here. I hope you have found the event helpful. Look for the video out on the website here sometime in the next couple of days, probably. Rachel will get to work on that pretty quickly. But I'm going to end the webinar for everybody, and I do hope that we will see everyone at another future Church Windows webinar event. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.